All right. Hi, agents. Today, our guest is Tyler Coon, and he is an agent in Western North Carolina who specializes in short term rentals. In fact, he was my agent when I bought in Maggie Valley. So I'm excited to have him. Welcome, Tyler.
Hey, so good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, okay. So take us on your journey from, dealing with retail buyers to then pivoting and now dealing with only investors in the short term rental market.
Yeah, so when I first got started in the real estate industry, I think I made kind of the same path, forged the same path as a lot of other agents do. So, me and a couple other folks from real estate school, what we actually did was kind of work together, right? We thought like have this little hive mentality. So, we were kind of an informal team figuring out real estate together. We were calling expireds and working on Zillow leads and things like that. And in the beginning of my career, working with first time homebuyers for me was really impactful. And it gave me a passion for the industry that I don't think I would have gotten or felt otherwise. And so I worked with a lot of first time homebuyers. And, in the beginning of your career, you're working on like small deals 150, 200,000, 250. And there were some times where I really wanted to give up. Then COVID hit, and I started seeing all these multiple offer situations, and I started working with a couple investors, and I found one I was really, really good at the numbers. I love a good spreadsheet and breaking things down, looking at what an appraised value could come in at, what revenue potential could be, and what type of offer we need to make in this multiple offer situations. So at the beginning of COVID, I was still kind of doing everything, and I started seeing these multiple offer situations, and my first time home buyers, my people moving to or from the area, were struggling because they're like, why would I pay 50,000 more for this house if this is the list price, right?
Yeah.
And I started thinking to myself, like, this is going to happen to me more often. But I have this certain segment of buyers that I'm really enjoying, which is the short term rental buyers. And for them, they're like, okay, I'll go 50,000 above ask because the revenue makes sense.
Right.
And that was really easy for me. I also enjoy being in the office a little bit more than I do being out in the field and showing houses, especially in multiple offer situations. You show houses for weeks, you submit offers, you don't get anything under contract, you go back out to show houses. And with investors, it wasn't so much that way. I could be in the office and have a higher volume of new clients. And so it was kind of middle of last year that I decided to fully make the transition to an investor only realtor. So these days, if somebody comes to me that wants to buy a house for the first time or move to and from the area, I refer them out just so that 100% of my time can be focused on investors.
Yeah. So when you made the pivot, how did that grow, your business and your commissions and everything?
Incredibly. So it took a few months to hit, right? And you have to get out there, you have to get a name for yourself. There are investor communities out there on Facebook groups just like these. And you have to do a really good job. And there's
Mhm.
you have to tailor your work to working with investors and working on investment properties. Um, and so, some of the ways that I've been able to succeed is by um, going out and doing a really detailed, a lot of the times it's sight unseen offers, right, by the buyers, and you're the only one that's seen the house. So you have to be a lot more careful with your buyers. And, in the past, historically, where, there may be some issues with the house and you try to tell your first time home buyer who, isn't going to get anything else, like, yeah, this isn't totally ideal, but this is all you can get, right? An investor has more choices than that. And if you point things out to them, I found saying no to investors or to a specific house, hey, don't buy this one. Let's look for the next one. That's had the biggest impact on me because then they fully trust you. if you aren't out just for your next commission, but you're out to find them their next best investment, that's what will help get you out there. So, in terms of impact that it's made on me and my business, I've closed 23 so far this year. We have 14 more under contract. As it stands right now in Western North Carolina, I'm the number one non-neighborhood agent. So everyone has those neighborhood agents that all they work on is houses in the HOA. So total, I'm number three, but outside of those other two kind of HOA neighborhood agents,
Wow.
I'm number one in Western North Carolina. So it's had a big impact.
Yeah, yeah. And I know recently you've grown, and so now you're actually covering more territory. So where are you working now?
Yeah, so I decided to start adding additional territory because investors don't care where they buy, right? All they care about is the numbers. So if I'm good at the numbers and my investors want to keep buying with me, they want to diversify their portfolio. So if I don't want to lose them, then I have to naturally expand my areas. So we've moved from I'm based in Asheville. And so at the beginning of working with just investors, I was only working the Asheville area, Maggie Valley, Lake Lure, and kind of up to an hour, hour and a half outside of Asheville. So then I moved into the high country of Western North Carolina, which is the Boone area. And
Yeah,
a lot of people may know that area. And that's
very
been
hot area.
really
Uh-huh.
popular with my
Mhm.
investors. And then we also moved down right over the border of Western North Carolina, down into Blue Ridge and Ellijay, Georgia.
Mhm.
So this will be a long-term thing. I'll be in Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, but it takes a lot of
Wow.
upfront
Yeah.
education and continuing education and licensing to get all that done. So it's a long journey. So if you commit to it, you really have to fully commit and take this long, years-long journey that it'll take you to get to where you want to be. But my goal is to cover the entire Southeast for investment properties.
Right. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, I love that's such big goals, you know? That's
Yeah.
so huge and I love it.
Yeah. Why do
Yeah.
anything if you're going to do it small?
I exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and finding this niche. So, I know you've kind of expanded to have like you actually include management and things like those to your investors that work with you. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, like I said, if you're going to do anything, don't do it small. So
Yeah.
we found, and we actually launched the management company before I went investor only.
Oh
And
wow.
what we were finding is that there are investors out there like doctors or CEOs of large companies, and they just don't have time, but they need to invest.
Right.
And so, at the beginning, before we started the management company, we were just referring to other local property managers who were not doing a good job at all. Just awful complaints. They were like, I'm not going to invest in this area again if I can't find somebody to manage this well. I had my
Right.
own investments and we were running our own Airbnbs, and I thought we could just do this for others. It's a lot harder than that. There's licensing and all sorts of trust accounting and all sorts of things that go
Yeah.
into it. And, midnight or 6 a.m. calls when a house is flooding. But I found that for my real estate business, it was a nice add on. And also, I thought to myself, right now I'm working at an insane volume. I mean, we're closing 2 or 3 deals a week, which means that like all day, every day, I'm putting out fires. And for me to sustain that for 2 decades is going to be really, really tough to operate at this level. I can do it now, but I don't want to do it forever. So the property management company for me is a nice retirement avenue. So I can get investors that don't want to manage their properties. A lot of my investors do self manage, but some come over to the property management company. It's a nice, easy sales channel. And it's something that will just grow and grow and grow until eventually I could retire from real estate and have the property management company kind of just running on its own.
Wow. Yeah, I love it. I mean, that's our goals, right? As investor friendly agents, we want to get to where we can be completely independent one day too. Yeah, that's amazing. Because you have your own kind of separate team that does take care of that side of the business, right?
Yeah, so right now we probably have 40 properties under management with maybe
Wow.
another 15 in the
Hmm.
pipeline for the next 2 or 3 months. So right now I have a team of two property managers that handle all of those. Um, It's not an easy thing to get into, certainly. I've never made any money from
Right.
property management so far. I just continue to reinvest in the company. The goal for the property management company is probably to get somewhere around 500 or 1,000 properties under management, which is a long, I mean, that's going to be a slog, right? That's going to be really tough to get there.
Yeah.
But by the end, it'll be worth it. And, if you look at, well, and I think knowing a lot of these things, like what I'm about to say, is really important as an investor to know about everything that's going on in the real estate investment world. Because the more knowledgeable you are, the more knowledge you can pass on to your clients, and then they feel more
Yeah.
confident to buy with you.
Hmm.
Looking at the property management, Vacasa just went public this year for like $4.5 billion. And they had bought Turnkey VR, which was a large national management company. They had 7,000 contracts under management, and they bought it for $500 million. So I thought, God, I could get to 7,000. It's going to be hard, but that's at least shoot for the stars, right?
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I love it. And with short-term rentals, it is when people are buying out of state, they're buying in these markets that they don't know, but you need so many of those components. You need the management, you need, the landscaping, the pest control, the cleaning people, like all of those things. And so if they know they can come to you, as an agent, but you provide, all of the contacts and all of, reputable people, in-house people too, that can take care of all of their needs. It's so amazing and, really, really big for business. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, that's what when I talked earlier about tailoring your business, I think that's a
Hmm.
really important one. Investors are worried about liability.
Yeah.
It was 2 weeks ago. I have like a VVIP client, and he's one of the top short-term rental consultants in the country. And we were under contract. He had not seen the house yet, so him and his wife drove in to come see the house, and he raked me over the coals a little bit. I mean, this is a guy that sent me millions of dollars of business, not just from himself, but from his group of investors that he consults for.
Right.
And it was as simple as the house was fine and everything was great about the house, but the parking situation was kind of off the side of the hill. It was a ski in ski out house in Beach
Oh,
Mountain, and there was room for 3 cars to park, which I thought, okay, that's fine. It's a smaller house, that should be fine. What I really didn't think about, and I should have been considering a little bit more, was the liability of in wintertime, a senior or a child getting out of the right side of the car and
right.
potentially sliding, falling down the hill. And he raked me over the coals a little bit for that. And you know what? I talked to him later that I didn't say anything. I didn't try to make any excuses. And I called him later. I said, listen, what? I really appreciate you teaching me that lesson. And it's something I do need to think about more. The liability for this house. I mean, he had a $5,000 non refundable due diligence fee.
Right.
So if I had maybe talked to him about this up front and really looked at, the potential liability of the parking situation, maybe I would have been able to avoid that up front. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. He came and made a post the very next day after we put another house under contract and said I was the agent with the most integrity he'd ever worked with, even after making that mistake. So I owned up to it. I told him, you're right. I made a mistake, and thank you for the lesson. Right, like this is
Hmm.
something I'm going to take to heart. I'm going to think about it. And I'm going to apply it to my future transactions. And he really seemed to appreciate that. So don't be afraid to make the mistake. Right, just don't also be afraid to own up to it.
Own up to it. I know, with agents, reputation's everything, and so everybody makes mistakes. There's going to be little bumps in the roads and issues with transactions. You're closing so many transactions per year. Yeah, you're going to run into stuff, but the key is honesty and transparency with your clients. That's going to get you more clients. It's going to get you good reviews, and you're going to feel better about yourself and dealing with, you know, all of these investors. So yeah, it's so, I mean, they're gonna tell all their friends whether it's a good experience or a bad experience. So yeah, I mean,
Bad
it's
news travels way faster than good
whew,
news. So
Yeah.
yeah, you have to be really, really careful. And like I said, I think the most important thing that I do day in and day out is I tell people when not to buy a property. And honestly, I think that is the number one thing that people respect about working with me,
Right.
is that, every single day I'm like, don't buy this one. Let's wait for the right one. And for a lot of agents, that's tough right now because they're losing a lot of multiple offer situations.
Yeah.
Um, but when they trust you, when
Hmm.
you tell them that they have to go 100,000 over ask to win a property, but the revenue is worth it, they'll listen to you. So
Right.
it really does pan out to be worth it, but it's a long term game. It's certainly not easy.
Right. Yeah. You can't just care about your immediate, commission on this and not look at the bigger picture, especially when you're dealing with investors because they're going to come back. I mean, hopefully, right? They're going to come back and buy more and more in your market. And
Exactly.
they're going to want to be able to trust you with every single deal that they have in their future. I mean, that's what we're building here. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so important.
Yeah, and I think if you work at a volume of transactions like I'm doing right now, you've got a clear path to listings later on. So, before when I made the decision, I actually left. I had a team. I had a couple buyers agents underneath me. And a business partner. And when I made the decision, my business partner at the time said, I don't feel like this is the way to go, Tyler. I feel like, if the market downturns, you're only working with investors. They're not going to be buying anymore. And I thought to myself, well, I've got a pretty clear avenue for listings if that ever happens. Dozens, hundreds of them potentially, depending on, if and when the market has that downturn. Um, so for me, that's why I'm working at such a high volume of buyers right now. It's because the market is a little bit volatile and I want to be able to tap listings later if necessary.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, true. Yeah. Well, do you have advice for agents that might want to try the strategy in their own market?
Um, I think, especially if you're brand new to it, it can be really hard to try to figure out where to find clients.
Mhm.
Um, if you can get out there in the online communities and start talking confidently about potential revenues in your communities in the areas that you serve, I think that's what will attract people to you. So nowadays, the way that I work is I've got a Calendly link and I have enough people out there referring me business all the time that my week is literally filled up with 3, 4 brand new investors every single day that book on my calendar that are waiting
Mhm.
for my value that I can give to them. Um, so to get to that point, what you need to know is what are the revenue potentials in your area. Go find existing listings that are existing Airbnbs and ask the listing agents for the rental revenue behind it. Get an AirDNA description. You can go on data.rabbu.com. That's data.rabbu.com. And you can run free rental revenue projections so you can start getting an idea of what the properties in your area can perform at. Once you feel confident in revenues, and you can talk to investors about that, get out there in the online communities and start talking about your area. I think that's probably the most important thing. And that's what I do every day is educate people on why my area and the areas that I serve are so investable and, safe, risk mitigated area to
Mhm.
invest in.
Yeah, yeah. So you actually have a Facebook page, and what is the Facebook page? It is
Uh,
Savvy.
Savvy STR Investors is our Facebook group. And so we started that Facebook group so that we could publish listings to investors. So I think right now we've got just under 500 members. So I've got 500 buyers in there. And so the way that I have it set up is nobody gets in my group until I've had a call with them. So it's
Mhm.
really, really time intensive on my end. But it's a really well crafted community because these are like active buyers ready to go day in and day out. So I'll make a post, somebody will reach out to me and say, hey, let's put in an offer. And it makes everything else really, really easy. But the toughest part is getting yourself out there to get on
Mhm.
the phone with investors and start building that community. But building your own Facebook group could be a nice avenue as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's all lead generation. So yeah, it's great.
It's like anything else in real estate, right? I mean, it's all lead generation, and this is certainly not the easiest niche to work in real estate, but it can be the most profitable because if you're the go-to in the entire area, I mean, it's crazy. I have people call me up and they're like, "Hey, we've never talked before, but I want to put in an offer on this one," and sometimes it can make it the easiest thing in the world. So yeah, give it a shot. Certainly, working with someone like Mariah as well, I know they're able to send over referrals for investors, and they've done so for me as well. So, look for other partners as well that may be able to do the same thing for you.
Yeah.
But don't do it until you feel confident enough to speak as an investor in the area.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate you coming and sharing all of this knowledge with us. So wonderful. Have a great rest of your day, Tyler.
Bye.
Everybody have a great day. Thank you
Bye.
so
Thank you so
much.
much.